This is an interview with Mr. Alf Brown, recorded by Chris Jeffrey on the 30th of July 1981 for the Battye Library Oral History Program and conducted under the joint cooperation of the Library Board of Western Australia and Broken Hill Proprietary Limited. Alf Brown sailed on Presbyterian luggers and the Yampie Lass for many years. Alf, would you give me your full name and date and place of birth?
Alfred William Brown. Date of birth, it's in Cape York, that's near Thursday Island.
Yeah.
I was an orphan and was sent to a mission station called Mapoon.
What date were you born, Alf?
10th of April, 1900. So I'm told.
Yes, well, yeah.
So I was only a little.
You're a little chap,
Yeah.
and you were an orphan.
An orphan, yeah.
Yes, and your parents?
My mother was full Aboriginal.
Yes.
My father was white.
Yes.
And in those days,
Yeah.
where did
Your father came from where?
Well, my name's Brown, so I'm bound to be an Englishman.
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't that right? And I was sent to a mission station called Mapoon. M-A-P-O-O-N.
Where is that exactly?
It's in Gulf of Carpentaria. Musgrave Bay.
Yes. Who ran the mission?
Oh, a German minister, the Reverend High, H-E-Y, and his wife and his sister-in-law, Mrs. J.G. Ward. They were the first missionary to the Aborigines at Mapoon.
And what religion was this?
When he was there, the Reverend High, it was a Moravian church.
Yes.
After they left, the Presbyterian church took over. I grew up there, went to school there, which at the age of 15, I went out to work.
So your schooling was right up to the age of 15?
Yeah.
Yes. Who taught the school?
The missionary's wife,
Yes. She was a teacher.
Mrs. High, and her sister, Mrs. Ward.
And they spoke excellent English.
Very
Yeah.
excellent. Well, as a matter of fact, they were Irish people.
Yes. Yeah, I see. And what subjects did they teach you?
Oh, I could say. Yes, in those days didn't care much about the Aboriginal people and that, as you know.
This is in Queensland.
In Queensland. And I went out to work at Thursday Island. I worked as a houseboy at a hotel called Federal Hotel for 2 years. And when I grew up, I went back to the mission. I fell in love with a girl there. She is my senior. We got married and was sent over here to the West in 1926.
What was the girl's name?
Andrina Shadforth.
And was she full Aboriginal?
She was what you call three-quarter.
Yeah.
Three-quarter caste.
Mm-hmm.
And
were there any Thursday Island in this?
No.
No. Just white and Aboriginal.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the late Reverend Love asked me to come over to the West.
The Reverend Love?
The late Reverend Love.
Yes.
You remember him?
Yes.
And he sent me over here to work as they need someone else beside my wife's brother. He was here.
Where?
At Kamanya Mission.
Kamanya? Mm-hmm. Yes. And this was in 1926. And what did you do at Kamanya?
Well, they had a lugger there. We used to run to Broome for our stores.
What was the name of the lugger?
The Roland.
The Roland?
Yeah, the Roland.
Whose was it?
The Presbyterian Mission.
It belonged to the Presbyterian Church?
Yes.
Yes.
And then they decided to get another lugger, which is Wat-legged.
That was the Wat-legged.
Wat-legged. It was named after Reverend Leggett, the late Mrs. Love's father.
Where did you learn engineering, marine engineering?
Up this west coast. Of course, I sailed in Queensland before that, just like a deck boy.
Yes.
Up and down the coast from Thursday Island, Mapoon, Weipa, and Arakoon.
Well, to go back to Queensland for a moment, what were you doing on the boats there?
Just running the stores.
Cargo
from the mission to mission. There was 3 Presbyterian missions.
You worked on the lugger in Queensland,
yeah.
Going from mission to mission at Weipa,
Arakoon.
Taking stores to and from the Presbyterian mission.
Yes.
And it was because of this you met the Reverend Love and came over to Western Australia.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you tell me about those experiences going up and down the coast here? First of all on the Roland and then on the Wat-legged.
Well, how I... Now, you got it all? I came over here because my brother-in-law wanted to go back to Queensland. Then when he seen his sister, he decided to stay. That meant they had job for 2 men, and they got the other lugger.
I see.
And Harry Shadforth was skipper on the Roland. He done the beach combing for the church.
Beach combing?
Beach combing, that means you get turtle shell, beach tame, anything you can get off the reef and sell. And they decided to get another boat then, which was the Wat-legged. I ran that for 16 years.
What year did they get the Wat-legged?
Well, that I couldn't tell you.
Roughly how long were you on the Roland?
About 2 years.
I see. So it would have been before 1930.
Oh, easy. Yes, that's right.
They got the Wat-legged.
Yes.
And you were on that for 16 years.
Yes. And that's where I really learned my experience on this coast.
This would be a treacherous coast to sail.
I think it's one of the treacherous in Australia. It's apart from Barrier Reef. And you've got to know the coast, the tides, and amongst the islands, tide runs all different ways. So it splits up in groups and meet on the other side.
Yes.
And it took me about 3 years to get to know this, and how I got to know the coast so well. On these treacherous channels and that, I used to make a point to go through that in the daytime at low tide, so as I could pinpoint the reefs and take my bearings.
Yes.
I'd done that. After I'd done that, I could go through those islands with blindfolded.
Well, that's what it was said, that you would go through the islands at night.
Yes.
Which...
I've done that hundreds of times.
Have you?
Yes.
Would you tell me about some of these islands and the bays?
Well, one of the most treacherous one is going into Walcott Inlet. I spent to know that tide, when to go in and when not to. I sat there for 3 hours watching the tide, so as I'd know when to get in, because it's some of those whirlies, you can see them going about 3 feet down, and it spins you around, and
there's a vortex in the middle.
Yes.
And the water spins
round and round.
What causes that?
Well, it's a big volume of water going through a narrow channel. This Walcott Inlet, it's in Collier Bay, and its mouth entrance, it's only about 1/4 mile wide.
And what's the height of the tide?
Over at Walcott Inlet, the tide rises there at 36 feet.
So that means that's 36 feet, the volume of water from going through 1/4 mile.
Yeah, at rush, and there's a big bay inside.
And then it spreads out.
Yes. And that took me some time to learn all those, but as I said, after that...
How did you get the boat through that? Did you take it through on high tide?
At low tide, to go in, you've got to go with the tide.
Yes.
As I said, I sat 3 hours on a hill watching this, timed it with clock, so as I'd know when to go in to escape this whirls, because after all, we only had a windjammer. After that, we got a little 14 horsepower auxiliary to take us through this.
Yes.
And we were only depending on winds in those days. And it is no fun, believe me.
You couldn't afford to make a mistake.
No, you cannot afford them in those tides.
What other areas or bays in along the Kimberley coast here have you noted?
Well, the most interesting one is Prince Regent, the entrance to Prince Regent especially. You get some beautiful islands there.
Yes.
Coronation Islands, Port Lincoln, Cape Wellington, Mount Trafalgar, Mount Waterloo, St Andrews Island, in St George's Basin. They're all in the one vicinity. That's what makes it so interesting.
Yes, what are they like?
It's beautiful, that's all I can say. It's beautiful.
Tropical islands?
Yes, beautiful.
And mangroves?
Yes, Mangrove Island. It's really beautiful. I've taken some people up there. I don't know whether you've heard of Kay. Oh, she went up there. She's a naturalist, she and her husband. I just can't think of her name at present. Oh, she wrote a lot of stories in Reader's Digest.
Yeah.
Scenic Wonders of Australia. Her name's in that. Oh, she was a lovely girl. And we took them up there for 12 days trip.
Is there anything done commercially in the Prince Regent River area?
Nothing at all, but on the other side, in York Sound, they had 3 or 4 fishing boats there for prawning boats. They'd done quite a lot in York Sound.
Yes. What length are the prawns?
Oh, it's not the king prawn you get down further down there, but banana prawns, I think they call it.
Right, about...
Well, some of them are about that long.
Oh, about 4 inches long.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they used to make Coolin Island their base. So they used to come down there and refuel and take the catch down.
When was this?
Oh, this was when Coolin opened up. It's in that book.
Before the war?
Before the war.
Yes.
No. Coolin only opened up after the war.
Yes.
It was Cockatoo Island that was opened before the war.
Yes. Yeah.
And another interesting people that I took up there was the German scientists, anthropologists. They went up there, but they had to have an Australian to go with them, because Germany and England were loggerheads, as I should say. And
was this during the Second World War?
Second World War. Just before the Second World War, I took this party up there. Their names were Dr. Fox, Dr. Schultz, she was a lady doctor, Dr. Lommel, and Fräulein Kleist. And then Mr. Pentney, he was the Australian. They spent some time in that region.
Yes. Actually looking at Aboriginal cave
paintings?
Yes,
all that.
Yes. And meeting the Aboriginal people from there?
Not only that, there were some white people in that vicinity. One of them's over here now. She was a girl and got married at Kanmanya. She was known as Miss Baird.
Miss Baird?
Yes.
Yes.
If you look up at the book at One Wet Season, I think it is, by Idris.
Yes.
She's there. She was known as Mrs. Merry. She got married at Kanmanya Mission.
Mrs.
Merry, Merry.
Yes. Yes. And she was white, a European.
Oh yeah, a European.
I wonder why she went up there in the first place.
Her father was a lay preacher there at Kanmanya. They both died. The mother died only 2 years ago. And the father died quite some time now. They were great people.
Yes.
And it's Gladys Merry, as she was known then, but she's a Hogan now. She remarried.
Remarried again. Yes.
She and my wife, they were like sisters.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. She's a great girl.
Yeah. Well, going further up the coast, what other places have you had dealings with? You've gone up round from King Sound, Cockatoo Coolin, to Walcott Inlet. George Water.
Yes, I've been there.
What's it like there?
Beautiful. So mangrove inlets and all that.
A lot of crocodiles around there?
Oh yes.
Many. The big saurian, the saltwater.
Saltwater.
Crocodile. And then there's the St. George Basin and Coronation Island, you've just spoken of, and that's the Bonaparte archipelago.
No.
Did you get up as far as that?
Bonaparte is in after Cape Londonderry.
Yes. That's Wellington, and there's Coronation Island.
Yeah.
And Prince Frederick Harbour.
That's right. You haven't got. Hasn't got.
What is misleading about Munja,
It
Alf?
says Aboriginal Mission.
Yes.
It was a feeding depot for the Aborigines.
A feeding depot?
Yes.
Who ran it?
It was a chap called Easton.
Yes. Yeah. And
Can't remember the missions further.
yes, how come he had that as a feeding mission? Was he employed by the Native Welfare Department?
No. He took up that piece of land there
At Munja.
to run cattle, and he died there. I think he got caught in the the river, and the crocs got him. So I was told.
Yes.
And then the government took over then
Yes.
after he died.
Yes.
And it remained as Aboriginal feeding depot. Well, they didn't.
That's where they could get supplies.
Yeah, headquarters was at Mullabulla. The same.
Yes.
I suppose you heard about Mullabulla.
Yes, I have. That's that was the station run by Aborigines.
Yes.
And that was part of Munja.
Yes, that's right.
But with government backing.
With government backing.
How far back was this? When was this?
Well, Easton got died there in the river before I came over in 1926.
Oh, that was before 1926.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, I see.
And there was a chap that they sent over to manage the Munja station was a Mr. Reid.
Reid.
R-E-I-D.
Where did they send him from?
Well, he was a personal friend of the manager at Mullabulla, Woodlands.
Yes.
I hope I got them right.
Yes. Yeah. And what do they actually do at Mullabulla? How many cattle do they run? Do you remember?
No, I don't. But I believe it was great. And they had their own tannery there at Mullabulla.
Yes.
I don't know who's got the place now.
No.
But in those days it was run by the government. It was the Australian government.
The government for the benefit
Yes.
of the Aboriginal people.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Alf, you were on the luggers during the Depression years. You were running the Watt Leggett for the Presbyterian Church.
Yes.
Did you feel the effect of the Depression up here at all?
Yes, well, we just heard the word depression.
Yeah.
But didn't know the full meaning of it. It was not until years after that, reading by the stories you get in the books, it struck us then how lucky we were.
Why didn't you affect it? Why weren't you affected?
Well, there were so many things. We grew our own veggies and all that, fish, turtle, oysters.
Yeah.
We had everything.
Yeah.
Provided by the Almighty.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, you didn't need money as such, did you?
No.
No.
I never felt it. It was years after when reading books and that, how the Depression affected people down south especially. It must have been awful. Yeah, well, that's where the Reverend Love comes in. But 3 years after he sent me over, he came there. He
had been over in Thursday Island, has he?
At Mapoon.
Mapoon.
He was a veteran of the First World War, fought in Gallipoli. And he came to Mapoon, and he's one of the most traitorous gentlemen I have come across. As the old saying goes, straight as a gun barrel.
Yes, people speak very highly of him.
Did you ever read a book called Stone Age Bushmen of Today? Now that was all nothing added. It's just plain facts.
Yes.
It might sound dry to some people, but knowing the people up there and working with them, yeah, really,
Very true.
Very true. So is his wife. I don't know whether you heard of her, Margaret Love. She's a great lady.
How many Aborigines were on the mission at Kamanya?
Kamanya, there must have been about 200 at the most. See, they didn't like the people. They more or less got rid of the girls, baby girls and that. But not now.
What tribe was it? Can you remember?
Warora.
Waroras.
There was two tribes there. They more or less understand each other's dialect.
Yeah.
The Warora, they were the coastal, and the inland one was known as Ngarinyan. Ngarinyan and Warnable as three tribes, but they all speak one another's dialect.
In the old days, were they pretty wild?
Well, when I went there, they weren't at all.
No, I mean before.
Oh, before, yes. Because from what I heard, quite a few died. They know, especially that one that Idris wrote about.
Pigeon. Was he a Warora?
No, he was from this side, the Derby side.
Yes.
The Pigeon, Kimberleyite. See, the Warora is a coastal tribe.
Yes.
You read the book about Pigeon. He put up a lot of strategies, fighting the wars, station owners.
Well, he had a well-developed sense of his own country, didn't he?
Yes, I grant you that.
So, what was it like living on the mission there at Kamanya? Had they put up buildings?
Oh yes, they had buildings there. Quite good. And we never used to run during the cyclone season.
No.
December be our last trip. December,
yes.
And then we'd start in March.
And how often would you make the run up the coast?
Once a month, sometimes twice. That's our port was Broome.
Yes.
Derby was only more or less a village then. There was no banks, no nothing, and it was going to Broome. It meant 600-mile trips each way. That's a long run.
That's a long ride. That's 1,200 miles to get stores. Stores and medicines.
Yes. And it's that's where I learned my seamanship. And then the late Reverend Love got transferred to Annabella. I had different bosses then.
Where's Annabella?
South Australia. It's Hoodnadetta. That's where it is, somewhere in that vicinity. I think it's called Hoodnadetta.
Yes. So the Reverend Love was sent there, and then who came up to Kamanya?
Reverend Holmes. Reverend Holmes and his assistant, Mr. Young. That's when I lost my wife in 1937.
She must have been young.
Yes, I was very depressed. She was buried at Kanmanya, and the late Reverend Love was away down south then when he came back, and he only stayed few months and he got transferred to South Australia.
Yeah.
And after that I was under Reverend Holmes.
What was your title on the lugger, Alf? Were you the engineer?
Well, just running the, I don't know whether you call it engineer, well I drove the engine, now it's the skipper on it.
The skipper.
And 4 were all the crew, 4 boys.
4 boys?
Yeah.
Ah. Yes, was skipper and launch master at Yampi.
That's right.
Great navigator.
That was when I joined BHP.
Yes. Would you tell me about the boys first? Who were the Aurora boys?
Oh, well,
The Aurora boys.
yeah, we used to give them boys each a monthly trip to train them.
I see. Yes.
The most famous one was an old chap. He appointed himself as my guardian, incidentally.
Yes.
Old Mundy.
Monday. Yes.
I don't know his Aurora name. I never bothered to find out. He's such a good old chap. And another one called Goodman. And his brother Dick. Their nephew Jimmy. We used to give them all a chance. And then it'd be different a lot in the following month.
Yes.
And then back again in cycle.
Yes.
And that's how they came. They came really good at it.
At the mission, how did they live? I mean, I know you took the supplies up to them, but what did they actually do at the mission?
Well, they grew their vegetables there. Then we had cattle and turtle, and the late Reverend Love made it a point on Wednesdays to go out and get their own feed from the bush and to take their children with them to show them bushcraft.
Very wise.
That's every Wednesday.
Yes. Would you describe a trip leaving Broome and going north during the dry season?
Oh, they were going back. We was always look forward to southeast. That was a good land breeze, and we'd hug the coast along. The worst time was going back to Broome in the westerlies. It was rough. But then we had a lot of anchorages. But then whether it was night or day, I had to push through because I sailed according to schedule. Had to be at a certain time in Broome, load up, leave Broome at a certain time to catch the tides at Walcott Inlet. Because we not only took cargo for Walcott Inlet, there was Mount Barnett used to send their people overland to get stores at Mountja. Mount Barnett, Mount House.
These are stations.
Stations.
Cattle stations.
Cattle stations.
Who was at Mount Barnett?
I don't know, but out of Mount House and Mount Barnett, but I knew one of the chaps that worked there.
At Mount Barnett?
Yes, I just can't think of his name. There was another station close by, was Gibb River, owned by the late Fred Russ.
Did the Blythes have Mount House?
That's right. They had that. Now I come to think.
So you would leave Broome on the tide, hopefully with a southeasterly.
Yeah, to get to Walcott Inlet.
Yes.
Took about 48 hours to get there.
Yeah.
Sometime a little over. At Manja Station, you've got to get there at the top tide on the springs. At the station, there was no water there in the Neeps, which meant that I had to land the stores about 5 miles down the river. They used to send a 6-ton wagon to pick it up there on donkey team. So it suited them better if I could go right up to the station.
Yeah. How far was the station from the coast on?
From the inlet, I think it's 38 miles inland.
From there?
Yeah.
And was that your first landfall after leaving Broome?
No, you follow the coast all along.
But where did you land? Where did you discharge cargo?
Right on the river bank at the station.
Yeah, but that was the first one,
Yes,
Manja.
For the other stations, they'd send a team down there, a horse team and camel team down from Mount House and that, to get their stores at Manja. That was the meeting place. And then after that, I'd go back up to Kanmanya with the mission car.
And you wouldn't make landfall again between Manja and Kumanya?
Oh no, it's all through the islands.
Yeah.
You're sailing.
Oh, you're sailing, but you didn't have to take stores to anywhere else?
No.
No, just the two places?
Two places, Manja and Kanmanya.
Yes.
That's where they pick up the stores.
And how long did that trip take you from Broome to Kanmanya?
To go straight across from Broome to Kanmanya, about 24 hours or 48 hours. That's sailing through.
To do 600 miles?
Yes.
48 hours?
And it all depends on the tide. To go from Coolen, you got to go into
So coming in to Walcott, here you pass Fletcher Island, and where would you actually make landfall? This is the inlet, and there's Manja Station. Yeah. Where would the boat anchor, the lugger?
The inlet's here. This is the inlet. See,
oh, I see, yes.
Just there, and that's the open water there.
Yes, I see.
This is the other one, George Waters in Doubtful Bay.
George Waters.
Yes.
Yes. And the whole thing is enclosed in Collier Bay.
Yes.
Yes. Manja Aboriginal Mission.
Oh, no, just a minute.
Secure Bay, that's where they're were intending to put that hydroelectric worked on the tides.
Yes.
And that's just down from Walcott Inlet?
Yes, a few miles south of it.
Yeah.
That's Walcott Inlet, now I get it.
Yes. So, on this lugger trip, you've come out from Walcott Inlet, and then you come up past the Lizard Island.
Between Lizard and Montgomery Reef.
And yes, that's the big Montgomery Reef. And up past Buckland and Hope, and through between Breaknock and Koory Bay.
Koory Bay was only called Koory Bay when they started the pearl culture. It was known as Breaknock Harbour.
Yes,
That's-
I see. Yes, Kuri Bay after Kuribayashi,
Yeah.
the Japanese
Yeah.
pearler. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they call it Curie Bay. Then it was known, if you look at the Admiralty chart, it's known as Breakneck Harbour.
Tell me about Mary Pascoe.
Well, I only know about her from hearsay, where there was a settlement there and she got sick and died there. The grave is still there.
Is that at Camden Head?
North of Camden Head, there's a little island there,
Yes.
near Camden Peninsula,
Yes.
on the southern side of the peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little island there, opposite Breakneck, Green Island. It's all in the Admiralty chart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it was the only place they could bury her, because the Aboriginals were very wild in those days.
Yes.
And that's where she was buried.
Yeah.
And it was after that that they abandoned the place. Because it was hostile country in those days.
And you can't remember the name of the place?
The little island, well, we call it Mary Pascoe Island.
I see.
Her tombstone's still there, and the date.
Yes.
The day and the date of her death.
Yeah. How did she die?
Oh, I think it is some epidemic, flu and that. Because being away from doctors and all that. That's what I heard. Because that was long before.
Yes. She wasn't one of the group of people from the eastern states who went up there to Camden Harbour in that ill-fated trip when they tried to settle in that area.
I think she was. Now you mention it. But they had no cattle from what I heard from the Aurora tribe. They tried to take sheep.
Yeah.
And that's where they put the sheep on Green Island.
Yes.
And the island was surrounded by water. So there's nobody could go and get the sheep there. But they made the camp on this little island because it was a nice sandy spit there.
Yeah.
That's where they made the camp, and she got sick and died there.
I see. I see. Yes.
Sorry, I can't give you the date. It seemed to
That's all right.
slip my memory.
How far inland was Carmunya Station?
3 miles.
3 miles.
Yes.
And how did you get the stores from the jetty? Was there a jetty at Carmunya? And how did you get the stores that 3 miles?
With a cart and donkeys, and the lighter stuff, we used to split up the cargo up, and the people carry it up.
I see.
And it was no trouble.
And this would be food. What sort of food would you take up there?
Flour, sugar, rice, tea. Yeah, we used to break up the stores at the landing and give each people about, according to the health of the person carrying, about 15 pounds weight to carry up, or some 20 pounds, some further, and 50 pound flour. We used to put on the donkey carts.
I see.
And it used to take days to get the lot up, but that's how we did it, because it was so hilly.
Yes.
But where the mission was, there was a beautiful valley with a beautiful creek there, with flowing
What was
water.
the creek called?
Oh, it's run from it's seasonal. But then we had wells for drinking water.
Good water?
All good water, yes, all good water.
And it was in this valley you grew the vegetables?
Yes,
Yeah. And of course if you, the cattle there, you'd have meat.
yes, that's right.
So it was just the other things that you brought up.
Yes.
Yeah. What about lighting?
Kerosene lamps. No fridges in those days. It was all what they call Coolgardie safes with hessian ran and dish, trough of water on top and drip over the side.
Pieces of flannelette.
Yeah, that's right.
Down the side.
Yes.
Alf, would you tell me about the Point George IV mission?
Well, I really don't know much about it. Only that it wasn't very big.
Who ran it?
The Presbyterian mission. And it was Reverend Love went up there before the First World War, and after the war he went back there, and that's when they tried and looked for another place, another missionary called Peyton, Reverend Peyton I think he was. They went and prospected and they found this Kanmanya mission. It's in a valley. And,
so Point George was before Kanmanya?
Before Kanmanya.
How far was Point George from Kanmanya?
As the crow flies, about 20 miles over the range.
Inland?
No, down the coast.
South?
Yeah. No, not south. Kanmanya, northwest of Kanmanya.
Northwest of Kanmanya?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And why did they abandon Point George?
Well, they couldn't grow much veggies there to feed the people. And people got too civilized and that, and they found this other one. That's what made them move there. But then, since then, they moved down here now.
The Kamanyas?
Yeah, the Warora tribe, they're up in Derby now.
In Derby?
Yes.
Why did they leave Kamanya?
Well, after Reverend Love died, the others, Reverend Holmes and all them, they thought it was so isolated, and they was thinking about the education for the younger generation, and they shifted further down the coast. That was after I left. I left during the war.
Where did you go during the war?
Well, as I said to you before, I lost my wife and wanted to give the kids education. I decided to arrange with the sisters in Broome, the Catholics. I knew one of them and asked if they could educate my children there, and that I'd find a place for them to stay there. And,
how many children did you have, Al?
2 boys and 4 girls.
What were their names?
Eldest boy, this is his house now, Alwyn. Alfred Brown, and the eldest girl is Laurel. Her name's Dantoin now. Edith, Kathleen, and Ivy. 4 girls.
And who was the other boy?
Alfred. He died 2 years ago.
So all your children came down and attended the convent.
Well, so I thought. But when I arrived in Broome, the place was bombed.
Yeah.
And
what did your children do?
I had one of my crew member got the children and put them out. When I arrived in Broome, there was no women and children there.
They'd gone out on the Kalinda?
They'd gone to South or Beagle Bay Mission. There was no women there, so I got one of my crew and put my kids out at a 2-mile leg. There was a Chinese chap had a garden there. And
out of where?
At 2 mile out from Broome. And on the land, like.
Yes.
And I left one of the boys there to look after them until I could see my way clear and get the agent to try and get my daughter's children down south. Well, I tried and tried and tried, and I really got worried when we see the town being bombed. And one of my friends came into town again from the 2 Mile and said, "What do you think you're doing here?" He said, "Your children are out at 2 Mile, not where you left them. There's no one there to look after them." Now I was all loaded up with the cargo to take back to the mission. I told the agent.
Who was the agent?
McNee. He was captain of the Home Guard then. And he was, what do you call it?
Shire president.
And he didn't know what to do. I said, "Well," I said, "I got my girls out there, my children." I said,
How old were they?
well, the oldest was working in town, and he was working for a baker, and that's L1. I didn't worry about him because he knew his way around Broome, but it was the girls. And I said, "Where are they?" And he told me where they were. I said, "That's it. I went aboard, got our things, got someone to run me out," and I told the agent, "Here's your key for the lugger." I said, "It's loaded, cabin's locked up with mail and everything." I said, "I tried my best." I said, "But my children come first." I said, "They're motherless." I said, "No, I've got to get them out." And we all went there, people in a rush, even this inspector of police, they were
Gone.
gone. So I got a job I was offered a job on a droving plant. And that took me down to Meekatharra.
Did you take your kids with you?
Yes, 4 months on the track.
Droving cattle from Broome to Meekatharra.
Yeah, I was the cook then. I done that for my kids.
Yeah. Were you actually in Broome when the bombing was on?
Well, we seen them.
You did see the Zeros come over and bomb.
Yes.
What was it like?
It's terrible. Terrible to see the people there getting swimming ashore, some getting shot on the flying boats and all that.
The Dutch.
Yeah, the Dutch people. It's terrible.
Coming down from Balikpapan and the Dutch East Indies.
Yes. It was terrible. And that's what decided me. I said, my kids. And then the mission started tracing me, trying to find me.
Why, to go back on the lugger?
Yes, and
what happened to the lugger when you handed over the key to the agent?
Well, that was up to him. I don't know. He took over then, got one of the single men to take it back to Kanmanya. Yeah. And I went down to Meekatharra, and the late Reverend Tulloch, he was the moderator of Presbyterian Church in WA. He heard I was there and he sent for me. He said, bring the children with you. So I got the first train from Meekatharra down to Perth. He was there to meet me. After a while he asked me why I left, and I gave him my story. He said, how long have you been here with us? I said, 16 years. He said,
16 years at Kanmanya?
Yeah, and they couldn't do that much for you. I said, no. I said, I was desperate. He said to me, you want to go back? Because he, more or less, he was my boss.
Oh yes, the moderator.
Yeah. I said, well, I got my children to think of. He said, well, I'd advise you to stay here.
In Perth.
In Perth. They had a children's home up on the Darling Range, just above Byford now. No, Byford? It was a country residence of Plaistows, and they bought it off.
Plaistows?
Yeah.
Yes.
They bought it off him. And I stayed there 3 years, till the children got used to it.
With the kids?
With the kids.
Yes. And what did you do there?
Oh, just a handyman around the place and drove the truck down to the township and got stores. And then the Call of the North called me.
By now it would be after the war?
After the war. Oh. My son came down there, took a trip down there, my eldest son. Alwyn.
Was he in...
He was up here, he was staying with the Archies.
In Derby?
In Derby, he was more or less one of the family then.
Yes.
He came down there and persuaded me to come back north.
Yeah.
Which I did. And Derby in those days was only just a fistful of people here. When I came back and I said, what have I done to my children? And anyway, we put up with it. I stayed with...
all your youngsters came back too?
Yes, they
the
all
whole
came.
Family?
Yeah. And then they said to me, I think they could feel it too, and they said, Dad, when are we going back to Byford?
Yeah.
Which made it easier for me.
Yes.
And I said, you want to go back? He said, yes, we want to go back. So I said, all right, I'll write to the moderator and to the secretary of the Presbyterian Home, see if they've got a vacancy. And when they received my letter, they just send the children up first available plane.
To Perth?
To Perth. And, that's what I did. And that's when...
they would have been adolescents by then?
Yes. I sent them back there and they were happy there. And I think it's one of the nicest thing I've done for my children.
Yes, to send them back. Yeah. So now, the only one of your family who lives up here now is your son?
It's Alwyn. The eldest daughter, she's at Exmouth Gulf with her husband. He's the district officer there for Public Works Department. So she done well for herself.
Good.
Well, as I said, I stayed here and I got a job down on the wharf, working ships, until BHP heard about me and offered me a job down on the island.
What year was this?
When the war ended?
1945?
1946 I got the job
with BHP?
With BHP.
And what did you have to do with them?
Well, I was signed on as a deckhand on the Yampie Lass. And I stayed on the Yampie Lass. She was a lovely ship. And we used to do weekly trips to Derby for stores. Other times we'd make more than weekly trips. Casualties and that accidents and that we have to rush them back here into hospital. So there was no plane in those days on the island. Everything depended on Yampie Lass. And we used to make weekly trips. We've had some very interesting passengers too sometimes. For instance, Sir William Slim. And of course the heads of the BHP.
Casey?
Casey, yes.
Lord Casey?
Yes, Casey. The late Hassington Lewis. Darling, Mr. Darling.
Darling?
Yes, he was a great friend of Hassington Lewis.
Essington Lewis used to make regular trips to the White House on Cockatoo to stay.
Yeah, that's right. He'd put in a week. We used to look forward to that, taking him out fishing on the ambulance.
Did you?
Yes. Yeah, they were great days, those. White-headed boy. Well, I used to look
For
after
Essington Lewis?
Yeah, I used to look after him.
In what way?
Well, see that he's comfortable in that. And when he's having a rest, stop the deckhands making noise and that. And one trip, he was very sick. And I got the deck chair out, put it out where he could sit out in the sun, and said to the other boys, don't disturb him, let him have his rest.
Yes.
Somehow or other he got to know about that.
And what was the result of it?
He was a great chap.
The handshake?
Yeah, he dropped £20 on me.
In your hand?
In my hand.
Yes.
He said, buy yourself something. But I remember the last time he was there, he used to go around and shake hands to the skipper, old Barney Wild. He said, look after yourself, Barney, and say thanks for a nice trip. Then he'd come up to me and he said, see you next year, Alf, if Providence is kind. I said, oh, you'll make it, sir.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten to call him sir. I think he liked that.
Yeah.
And but the last time he came there, when he went round and shook hands, shook hands with the engineer, and Barney Wild, the captain, then he said, I'd like to see you up in the bow there. That's the forward end. And he said, well, Alf, he said, I want to thank you for the friendship you've given me all these years. I said, sir, the boot is on the other foot. After that, Captain Wild said to me, he said, well, what did the boss have to say to you? I said, well, he just shook hands and said, thank me for the courtesy I've shown him all these years. And I said, that's all he said, and shook hands. And I said, Barney, I don't think we'll see the old man again. He said, why? I said, well, every other time he used to say, if Providence is kind, I'll see you next year. I said, now he just said, thanks for the friendship, and that was all. And he died.
How long after?
Oh, I think about a year after. He died the way he wanted to.
Yes.
Yes.
How?
To die on riding his horse on his farm. I forgot his farm now. And that's how way he died, riding his horse with Mary, his daughter, alongside of him. And he had his wish.
I believe he used to go out to Liberinga.
Yes. Oh, he used to take fish out there. That was his idea of going fishing, to take fish out to the Rose family. They were great friends of his. And that's the last time I seen Mr. Essington Lewis. It was
Yes, he died in 1961.
yes, something about there, I think. He had came here one year with his daughter and his niece. They were great girls. Mary was his daughter, and the other one, I just can't think of her name. They were really pair.
They enjoyed Cockatoo.
Oh, tremendously. Went out fishing.
Where did you take Essington Lewis fishing?
Out mostly all around Cockatoo Island, Irvine, yeah. All these islands here. Wherever he wants to go. Then we'd go right across over there.
To One Arm Point?
Yeah. To get fish.
Good fishing out there.
Very.
What sort of fish did you catch?
Mullets, whitefish, trevally. We used to take the net and then sail back there.
Netting them?
Netting them, yeah. That was his more or less recreation.
Yes. And then he'd stay on Cockatoo.
Yeah,
and then go over to Liveringa Station.
And spend a week there with the Rose family. They were his great friends.
Well, that trip the trips you used to do on the Yampi Lass was from Cockatoo
Derby
and Coolin later to Derby.
Yes.
Did you go to Coolin at all with Yampi Lass?
After. This was Coolin more or less came after.
Yes, that was about 1965.
Yeah.
This was 51.
Yes.
Yeah. What was the trip like up through the King's Sound on the Lass?
Well, some people reckon it was dangerous, but...
Why dangerous?
Well, there's so many islands and reefs, and some of them were uncharted. You've no idea how many reefs there that's not charted now. There's Buccaneer Archipelago. And we used to go there, and I think Barney used to make this trip because he was a bit dubious about carrying them VIPs. He used to try and make it day trip, never the night trip. But they got to know us so well that they never bothered about that. I remember one trip we had, they wanted to see if the North was worth defending, I think it was. They sent from down south the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force.
But one of the officers from each?
Yes, there was a squadron leader, the Air Force, and an Army general, and Captain Bowden, I think his name was, a naval chap. Bowden or Howden? I think he got drowned swimming somewhere around in Sydney. I remember on one occasion we'd come along, we'd gone through a small passage, narrow passage called Gag Pass. And we had big glass windows at the back of the wheelhouse, and we had the Army General and the Captain Haddon, laying down there, and it was towards morning. He looked through the glass, and the skipper was asleep on the couch in the wheelhouse. And he came there, you could see the boat going from one side to the other, and I'm battling with the wheel to counteract the tide movements.
You were on the wheel? I
was on the wheel. And being a seaman, he came there and he said, can't you keep a straight course? I said, with all due respect to you, Captain, and your rank, take the wheel. Oh, he said, can I? I said, yeah. Well, he took over. 1 minute we was going one direction, next the other. And he looked at me, he said, I see. He said, we're never too old to learn, Alf.
This was the effect of the tide.
The tide, yes, through a narrow entrance. Oh, you could know. Then I said to him, I said, Captain, you run a big ship. I said, she's deep in the water. I said, this is only a small craft. She only draws 6 foot of water. I said, the tide just swing it like a cork. He said, yes, I realised that now. He said, carry on. I said, aye, sir. It was a great experience.
Yes. Who were the crew members on the Yampy Lass at that time?
Oh, we had different crews, so we changed every 6 months.
Why was that? Any reason?
Oh, they get tired, just wanted to go back to Perth or get a shore job and that.
Who were some of them?
Well, we had different engine drivers. Donovan was one, then Jim Martin. Brian Duggan was the longest.
And you worked with all these men?
Yes. Oh, the friends I've made, oh.
Yes.
Brian Duggan was the longest. Oh, he's a great friend of mine.
Yes.
And his family. Did he tell you about the trip the islanders gave me?
Yes, but not in detail.
I never expected that. Never in my life I expected that.
They gave you a trip round
Australia
when you retired
Yes.
from the company.
Yes.
How long were you with BHP, Alf?
16 years. 26 years.
You certainly stay in jobs a long time, don't
Yes.
you? You don't move round.
No. Well, I've heard people say things about BHP, but I can't say nothing but good about them.
You found them a good firm to work for.
Yes, very well. Excuse me.
So, Alf, you retired in 1972
That's
when
right.
Charlie Brownlow was the manager of Yampy, and he wrote you a letter talking about your retirement and said that, to quote, I have approval to recognise your outstanding service with the company in the form of a further lump sum payment of $1,000. You'd been paid your previous salary check.
Yes.
A cheque for this amount is also enclosed. Finally, I wish to assure you that there will always be a room available for you on Coolin Island. Please feel free to visit the island any time you wish, and should you feel inclined to work on such occasions, there will always be work available on the wharf. On behalf of all the employees with whom you have been acquainted with over the years, I join with them in wishing you a long and satisfying retirement. Yours faithfully for the Dampier Mining Company Limited, C.E. Brownlow, Manager, Yampy. Well, that's a marvellous letter to get, Alf, and they gave you a trip round Australia. And when you left on this trip, I have here a card, a bon voyage card, with the signature of all the people with whom you knew on the island.
Yes.
Coolin and Cockatoo.
And Cockatoo.
Both islands. Yes, there are a lot of signatures there. I see Vic Cox at the bottom here. And Brian Duggan. Yes.
Yes, it was a really great send-off.
Yes, and this was in 1972.
Yes, I was speechless, believe me.
Yes.
I never realised I had so many friends.
Yes. Yeah. How long did you take to do this trip round Australia?
Well, 3 months they gave me.
By air, was
By
it?
air, it's what is known Matthew Flinders air travel. Visited every capital city in Australia. And unknown to me, I found out later that one of my friends, who's got a brother in Melbourne, wired the Oakes family.
The Oakes. Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was surprised when I seen them at the airport at Sydney. They were there to meet me. Laurie Oakes and his father. I stayed 8 days with them at Lithgow, at Woollera Way.
Have you ever taken advantage of that offer and gone back to the island?
Yes, quite many times, and I felt embarrassed sometimes. And I didn't know Dick Bennett was there. And he heard I was there, and he sent a Land Rover around to pick me up. And so I went, and he said, "How do you do, Alf?" I said, "Oh, nice to see you, Dick." He said, "I see you haven't been visiting the island lately." He said, "They got everything in the book." I said, "Yes, Dick." I said, "I feel embarrassed sometimes." He said, "How come?" I said, "Well, you don't charge me any board." And he said, "Have you ever thought what you've done for us?" So I said, "No, Dick." I said, "It's more or less a job." He said, "Well, just forget about it."
Yes, but you were with them for so many years.
Yes.
Would you tell me about the trip you made to Wyndham on the Yampi Lass? Why was this trip done?
Well, they wanted to prospect around the coast for probably bauxite and all that.
Who, BHP?
BHP, yes. Mm-hmm. So they decided to send Barney and I, that's our captain, to Wyndham on the Otter, on the Pioneer, that's the company's...
The Scottish Pioneer.
The Scottish Pioneer. We flew over to Wyndham, Kununurra, then Wyndham.
Where was the Yampi Lass?
We left her in Coolan Island. We flew over there to pick out petrol dump sites along the coast every 60 mile for the helicopter. Yeah. And we started from Wyndham and followed the coast around Cambridge Gulf, Bonaparte Gulf, around Cape Londonderry.
Mm-hmm. From Wyndham you flew down the coast to Columbaroo, yeah. And from the air you chose sites, beachheads.
Beachheads for
the
petrol dump.
Mm-hmm.
When we got to Columbaroo, we had dinner there with the priest and the nuns. Believe me, it's a lovely place. Columbaroo, yes.
So you did actually land at Columbaroo?
Yes, they got an airstrip there.
Mm-hmm. What sort of plane were you on at this stage?
Scottish plane.
Oh, still the same one?
Yes, just the companies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And from Columbaroo...
That would be Father Perez?
Yes.
Father Sands?
No, Father Perez, I think.
When was this, Al?
Oh, I just can't think that back. It was when we had another manager then, Mr. Shepherd, Rod Shepherd. That's before Charlie Brownlow took over. And he came on that trip as well. We sailed right around the coast, picking sites every 60 miles. Flew until we got back to Coolan. After we got back to Coolan, we loaded up the petrol and then sailed up the coast again with the petrol. After we'd dumped all the petrols.
Can you remember the names of the places where you made these petrol dumps?
Yes, one was just
starting from Coolan.
The first one was at outside Secure Bay. Mm-hmm. That was the first one. Second one was one side was at Camden Peninsula. The next was near a place called Hammock Island. The third was,
or the fourth?
Fourth, I mean, at a place called Rowe River.
Rowe.
Rowe. R-O-W-E.
Next one?
Scott Straits. The next was at Vansittart Bay.
Vansittart.
After that it was Cape Talbot.
Talbot.
Next was Cape Ruthia. Ruthia. From there, Cambridge Gulf. And then on to Wyndham.
How long did that trip take you?
12 days. Yeah.
Were you carrying geologists on board?
Yes, well, that was the idea. The what-legged, no, the Yampilas was the base. And every morning we'd go there and fuel up the helicopter, and they'd take off and be away prospecting all day.
Where was the helicopter?
Well, that was the idea. Every 60 miles was the camp. You get it now?
Yes, I see. And so the Yampilas, that was used for the helicopter,
Yes.
that petrol, the bases.
Yes.
But the Yampi had her own fuel to do that 12-day trip.
Yes, that's
She
right.
didn't need it. Yes.
On its last trip from Wyndham round about to Forest River and all that district around there.
Forest River.
Yes. In that vicinity, and she cracked up. One of the blades hit a tree. And believe me, we was worried. And
Was this a company helicopter?
no, it was hired. Special people, they hire these planes. It was one of those with a blister in front.
One of the things I was going to ask you, Alf, was when you were on all these boats, these luggers, right from the Roland, the Wat-legged and the Yampi Lass, what about the maintenance of them? How did you get on with that? Did you ever have difficulty getting spare parts? Or?
No difficulties. It is more or less a routine and all that. No.
The earlier boats that, the Wat-legged and so forth, that belonged to the Presbyterian church, how did you get on with the maintenance with those? Did they get spare parts up for you?
In Broome.
Ah, you could buy them in Broome.
In Broome, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
We were the means of picking up 7 men off a lugger that got wrecked on Lassipede Islands on the 1935 cyclone.
Yes.
Quite a lot of lives.
Now you were on the Wat-legged
Wat-legged
at that stage.
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me what happened.
Well, I was just going down the coast, calling at Walcott Inlet to pick up their mail, and then sail down the coast. That's where the cyclone got us. And that trip from Walcott Inlet to Coolan Island used to take me 6 hours. I'd done it in 3. See, the wind was right behind us.
Blew you there?
Blew us there. And I had my mind made up where to call in. It was a place just looking down from the town side called Barramundi Bay. And that's where I was during the cyclone.
Barramundi Bay?
Bay. That's where I was.
Yes.
And after it blew over, we sailed down the coast. Coming down the coast, we spotted smoke out in Lassapede. I think Lassapede is about 10 miles off the coast. And we was hugging the coast all along in case of another cyclone. We'd run into creeks and that for shelter. And one of my crew said, there's a smoke out at Lassapede. No, he said, there's a ship, steamer out there. So I just had a glance. I said, oh yes, that'll be the state boats going up north. And after a while we were sailing along and I looked, I said, the smoke happened to be on the one place. So I said, no, that's a shipwreck. So we sailed out to see what was happening there. And when we got closer, we could see a jury mast with blanket at the top of it.
A what?
A blanket.
Yes.
Or a cloth like.
Mast.
A mast. And so I sailed close as I can get, and we seen them. 7 men off one lugger.
What nationality?
Japs and Kopangers.
Kopangers.
Yeah.
Yes. I bet they were glad to see you.
Yes, and
had they lost any men on that?
No, when I asked him, I said, is there any more? He said, no, we're the only ones. He said, but there is one buried here. He said, sure, and picked the men up, and they were covered in sand. More dead than alive.
Yes. How long had they been there?
Oh, about nearly a week.
Yeah.
And when I asked him, any more luggers wrecked? He said, no. I said, you sure? He said, yes. So anyway, I got out to the reef and I sailed up and down the reef just to make sure, and that's when we spotted 4 other luggers. They were down in the bottom. They sunk.
They had sunk.
Mm.
And the men were lost.
Were lost, yes.
Yes. So what happened after you had saved that particular group from Lassapede?
Well, everything turned to normal again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what about the, you were telling me earlier about the agent's boat?
Oh, we took him and he was glad to get it back.
Yes. What happened when you met this lugger? They had, this was in the same blow?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This was after the same 1935 blow, and going down to Broome, that's when we spotted Mr. McNee's lugger.
Mm-hmm.
And we towed it in.
Yes, and they were actually using a dial.
Dion, they call it.
That was a long row back.
Oh yes, it is. But see, that it wasn't hard as some people make it out if you follow the tide. See, the tide on the coast runs parallel up and down the coast. And if the tide's against you, you simply drop your anchor and wait for the tide to go towards your destination. So
this actually helps the boat?
Helps the boat along.
And that combined with the use of the dial?
Yes.
They could actually move a lugger, which is a fair size, by hand. Yeah.
But it's amazing what speed they can pick up on those dials.
Yes, it's a form of sculling.
Yes. And Mr. McNee was very glad to see his boat.
I bet he was.
There's a lot of others didn't.
No, they lost. It was in that particular blow that the Kalinda saved so many Japanese lives, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then during the war, the Japanese didn't bomb the Kalinda.
No.
Yes. You told me that it was at Broome Harbour, the Broome Jetty.
Broome Jetty, when the raid came on. She was sitting on the mud. And the captain said, well, this is it.
Yeah. This was Captain Eggleston.
Yeah. This is it, and there's nothing he could do. Tide was out. But to the surprise of all, and just plane flew around, dipped their wing, and back.
And went off.
Went off. But it was years after, and they'd found out why. It was the Emperor's orders, never to touch the Kalinda.
Because they'd saved the...
so many lives, Japanese lives.
Previously. Yes. What about the Kalama?
She was bombed at Napier Broome Bay. It was known in the Spanish mission there as Drysdale Mission. Today it's called Columbaro, which is further in King Edward River.
Than the old Drysdale.
Yes, that's right.
And what happened to the Kulama there?
They cemented the hole and managed to sail it into Darwin, into Wyndham. And the next raid, the Japs made sure of it.
Yeah.
They tried to refloat it, but they couldn't. They tried and tried to.
Too much damage.
Yeah, it was too costly because they're on account of the silt there.
Yeah.
The suction was so great on these northern rivers, and that the muds. I think that was one of the trouble. But it's on the harbour charts, and then other ships coming in, they know where it is.
Yeah. Alf, to go back to the Cockatoo, Coolin Island area, just across King's Sound is One Armed Point and Sunday Island, which is now was a mission that was abandoned. Yeah. Did you ever have any dealings with them?
Yes, I had. On one occasion, I had to take stores to One Armed Point.
Who were there?
Mr. Drysdale, David Drysdale.
And what was he doing there?
Well, he was more or less trying to help them along, like he came back from Perth. He used to be at Sunday Island, and he came back then. He was going to start a mission up at One Armed Point.
What denomination was it?
United Aborigines Mission.
And why was Sunday Island abandoned?
Where did you...
Why was Sunday Island abandoned?
Well, it was abandoned, I think it was for the sake of the children.
It's only a small island.
Yes, and they wanted to bring them into Derby to give them education, which they did. But the people didn't like staying in Derby. They wanted to go back to One Armed Point. So they
was the Battye.
The Battye tribe. They didn't like it up here. And that's
well,
when...
it would be away from their country, wouldn't
That's
it?
right. And David Drysdale heard about it, and he volunteered to come back. And he started all over again.
At
One Armed Point.
At One Armed Point.
Yes.
Were the Battye quite happy to go to that area?
Yes, because that was all there.
All this was there?
Yes, that's
area,
right,
but
Battye.
not Sunday Island?
Not Sunday Island. Well, Sunday Island came with it, but it was better on the mainland.
Well, what did he actually do at One Arm Point? Did he have, how many did he have there?
Oh, I couldn't say how many people there now. But he was going to start a mission there, and they put up buildings there through the government. And they was going to start turtle farming. But I believe that didn't turn out. It's petered out. Yes, I took stores over there from Cockatoo to One Arm Point. So there they had no transport. So they came over in a little launch to get the stores, and then I took it over on a bigger launch with a doctor to see how the people were. Dr. Battye. He was a great doctor.
Where did he come from?
Victoria. Actually,
But was he stationed in Derby?
No, Battye was stationed at Cockatoo. He's a retired doctor. And he had quite a lot of caravan in Victoria, caravan parks. And
but he was a medical doctor.
He was a medical doctor, and he went over there. And,
yes.
And he died after 2 or 3 years at Cockatoo. It was very sad.
Yes.
He went. He had a heart attack.
Alf, to come back to the mainland now.
Well, I think there's 2 points. See, it was all right to bring the younger generation up here, to teach them schooling and all that, which was a good thing. But the old people, ever since they came to here, they just went like, died off so quickly. There's a lot of them that died here through contact here, and drinking habits and all that. I really was up against that because Mr. Coombe, Dr. Coombe, I think, or Reverend Coombe, and the Protector of Aborigines went over to Cockatoo to ask my views on it, and that's what I told them. I said, you're going to have a big headache if they hit Derby. He said, but we're thinking of the younger generation. I said, yes, I have.
This is from One Arm Point?
Yeah. No, this is the Warora tribe.
The Warora.
Derby children was already here. And I said, that drinking habit's going to get them. And I said, that's when you're going to see them go. And they knew they found it after them that...
when would this have been?
Oh, it's before Coolan Island was opened up.
So before 65?
Yes. And they shifted the Kanmanya people from Kanmanya to a place called Watjalam, just on the mainland from Cockatoo Island. They used to grow vegetables there. And again they made a mistake. I reckon it was so isolated that they shifted to Derby.
The people themselves came into Derby?
Yeah, no, they brought them in here.
The mission?
Yeah, more or less the government, for the children's sake.
Yes.
To teach them. And they were up, I think, the mission was just off the airport there.
Outside Derby?
Outside Derby. Now they've all, again, shifted them just a bit further off the road. It was too close to the airports. So probably
Dangerous.
they might probably extend the airport. Could be, I don't know.
And who runs that out there now?
Just the people themselves,
I see, it's their own community.
their own community, and the chairman is Paddy Mollivan. He's well known here in Derby. He used to drink like a fish, but I think he's off it now.
Is he a full-blood?
Oh yes, quite a nice chap. He was, I think he was given the Empire Medal on a few. As a matter of fact, he came here.
BEM.
BEM. He came here to show me the letter he got from the West Australian. What do you call it now? The governor.
The governor. Yes.
And
yes.
I read it. I said, when you go down the shop on the next payday, buy yourself a frame, and framed it up. I said, hang it up in your office.
Very good. Well, Paddy, in the past, what about the dealings between the stations and station owners and the various tribes and Aborigines who worked for them? What were the relationships like there?
Well, I've had so many stories, and then you get half-caste kids and all that. Because they're away from Perth and cities and that. To have an outlet in that, I hate to talk about things like that. But I was more or less on the coast. I've never went inland. I went as far as Fitzroy Crossing with my son-in-law, and that's as far inland I went. I've never been anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm more or less, as you call, a coastal man.
A coastal man.
So, I've seen quite a lot of different children come in there with bright colours, different colours altogether. As a matter of fact, if you go down to Mount Jim now, there's even the coloured boys. So I don't know. It might be all right. It remains to be seen.
And what about in the present day? There seems to be more activity with advisors to the Aboriginal people, which is good or bad. It's hard to say.
Some of them are very good. So, for instance, this member for Kimberley now, Bridge. He's a great. I heard him talking to my son one day. He said about these truck drivers and all that, and he said they should have been in the days here when there was no bitumen roads. Well,
Your son said?
No.
Bridge.
And Bridge said to Alwyn. He knew my son. He said there should have been in your time when few other pioneers, Georgie Archie and all them used to drive it. Georgie Archie was the mailman for Fitzroy Crossing. There was no bitumen roads then, it's all bush tracks. Alwyn used to be a week, 10 days on the road, like he used to work for Kenty, truck driver.
Kenty?
Kent.
Okay.
Well, we just call him affectionately Kenty.
Kenty.
Yeah, and that's when I met Ernie Bridge. Incidentally, the one before him that he beat on the election, Alan Ridge, his cousin's married to my daughter, one of my daughters. Yes, I thought a lot about Alan.
Yes.
Alan Ridge. As a matter of fact, he was the best man.
At the wedding?
At the wedding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of my daughters well settled.
What was Broome like in
Very busy port.
1936,
Very
26
busy.
and onwards?
Very busy pearling in those days then. There's Malays, Copangs, Japanese, Chinese diver and all that. Filipinos. And
Do you remember Ellie's, the pearl doctor?
yes, he was a great man that. We used to just call him TB. TB Elias.
Yes. That was his initial.
His initial, TB Elias. He had two sons, Willie and I just can't think of the other boy's name now. But they're over in, I think, all the younger generations, the Elias, are all in Perth.
That's right. Did you ever see any trouble between the various groups of people there? In 1921 there were the Broome riots.
Yes, I read about that.
That was between the Japanese and the Copangs.
Yes.
Did you ever see anything of a similar nature? Was there?
No.
Did they tend to separate?
No,
and live in their own areas?
It was quite a harmony after that. But I read that in one of Iris's book, I think. That's where I got to know about that. I think the sergeant of police had a heart attack after that, after the riot. Sergeant Thomas, I think, if I remember right. Mind you, I just get it from the books.
Yes. Everett Bardwell?
Yes, there was Mr. Everett and then Bardwells. And one of the Bardwell sisters, she had a beautiful shell collection in Broome. Mrs. McDaniel. She was the sister of the Bardwells. I think one of the Bardwells left all his collection with a Victorian museum. I remember I did hear something about it. Well, he had a wonderful collection. We used to call them bowerbirds.
Call them bowerbirds?
Yeah.
Collect.
Collect everything pretty. He went up to Conmania, one of the Bardwells, he was collecting specimens for the American Museum, starfishes and sea hedgehogs and all that. I had a wonderful week with him. He was on his holiday. Took him up to the mission, left his...
You took him up on the what-legged?
On the what-legged. Left his wife at the mission, and we took him out to collect these specimens. And after the trip was over, I said, well, did you get what you want? He said, I'm quite happy what I got out. And I think he had a red letter day too. He found a shell in Broome itself on a sandbank there, which was unknown to science. And they looked up the natural history of shells and that. There was, they call it after him, Bardwelly. The shell. Because all the shells got a Latin name. And they call it Bardwelly. He told me this himself. He said it was a great day for him. I don't know who's got it now, but he reckoned it was a beautiful shell.
In Broome of those days, was there a very sharp distinction between the pearling masters and the sort of life they led and the rest of the people?
You said it. It was class distinction. Not only colour distinction, but the class. If you were a poor white, you couldn't drink in the same bar as the master fellows in those days.
Which bar did they go to?
Who?
Which bar did they go to?
Well, there's special bars there. I don't go to, never go to the pub myself. I don't drink.
No.
So I wouldn't know what sort of bar they got to. But
Well, there's the Roebuck. There was the Roebuck Hotel.
they called that the Bushman's Pub. They used to, a fella called Billy Ward ran it. Ward. He had the Roebuck in those days, and it was known as the Bushman's Pub because for this reason, as long as you clean, get a good clean shirt, you needn't put tie or coat. The others, Continental, Governor Broom, laptop tie and coat.
In those days.
In those days, yes. Oh, the class distinction was very strong in Broome one time. Now it's.
Yes, I believe even the women had visiting cards.
Oh yes.
Yeah. What about Sheba Lane? Do you remember the place called Sheba Lane?
Sheba Lane, yes, that was Jimmy, old John Chai.
John Chai.
Now, his son's still alive in Broome, Jimmy Chai. He's still in Broome. He got caught in those when so his mother was a Japanese and his father was Chinese. The authorities didn't take that into consideration, seeing he had a Japanese mother. He was sent to a concentration camp down south, somewhere around.
John Chai.
John Chai, Jimmy Chai. John Chai have already died. This
is Jimmy the son.
The son.
Yes.
Yes, he had a business there. What do you call a restaurant, and because when the war broke
Yes,
out.
the shops must have been fascinating there with all the things you could buy from
Yes.
Southeast Asia and
That's
Japan.
right. Yes, Jimmy was sent down south. I think it's in this book. Jimmy Chai or north of the 26th parallel. I've got that book, but I think one of the granddaughters reading it now. And the story in that.
Yes.
Jimmy Chai and all the old identities. Con Gill. He was West Indian. They used to call him the old philosopher.
Why was that?
Well, if you want to know anything, people used to say, "Oh, go and see the old philosopher, he knows everything." Old Con Gill.
Con Gill.
He told me a funny story once. He was sitting reminiscing about the old days. He said, "You know, Alf, you and I'll never get to heaven." I said, "How come, Con?" He looked at me and said, "My friend, have you ever seen a picture of a black angel?" I reckon that was unique. Yes, that's what he said. He was a West Indian lad. Well, I never forgot that. So I just left it at that. I didn't want to argue with him. And that's why they call him the old philosopher.
In the days when you were on the lugger, Alf, What about sickness in the area? There was no hookworm, you say, but what other sickness
Oh, well,
was
there
there?
was venereal disease, leprosy.
This is round the Derby area or Munja?
Munja and all around the district, they had a government doctor called Dr. Musso. He was a skin disease specialist. And he was the means of cleaning the Kimberley up to bring all the people that had skin disease, leprosy in there. Of course, the leprosy up here is not the same as they get in Asia.
No.
I believe your finger drops off, but these is different altogether. It doesn't leave any scars, provide you get it.
You get the early treatment.
That's right. And I used to take them down to Broome whenever there's a chance. The patrol picked them up, bring them down to Munja or Kanmanya, then I'd bring them down to Broome.
On the lugger?
On the lugger.
The what lugger? The what legged?
What-legged. But I used to be scared in a way, because I was thinking about my children. I had from doctor's advice, it said be very careful, don't let them use your panicking or whatever you're drinking with. Never let them use that. So I took his advice. But it was very embarrassing to take them up to the hospital and then get scolded at by the matron.
Which hospital?
Broome Hospital.
Broome.
And they had, I just can't think of her matron then now. And she wasn't very well liked. And
Why were they scolded?
well, she scolded me for bringing them. I said, well, I'm working for a boss. I said, he tells me to take these people to hospital, so I have to do it. Otherwise, out you go. I said, you're a government matron. I said, it's your duty. Well, this happened, and so one trip I got sick and tired. I took my patients up to the police station.
Yeah.
Sergeant said, what have you got there? I said, oh, some sick people from Munja. He said, well, take them up to the hospital. I said, no. I said, I'm leaving them here for you to deal with. He said, why? And I told him. Why didn't you tell us before? So they took over, and had no more trouble after that. I said, after all, you got to do what you're told. You're working for a boss. But this Dr. Musso, he cleaned the district up. When he left, there wasn't much left, and he went back to England to study more. But he was the means of cleaning the Kimberley up. He was only short, except about 5 foot. So he had a lot of go with him.
He was employed by the public health, was he?
No, the Aboriginal department and the public health. There was two of them. Then Dr. Davis, he was another one. But Musso was the means. He could look at a person at a glance and know you got it.
Did you have any dealings with the leprosarium here in Derby?
Oh, I've gone out there to see people that I knew, the mission from Kanmanya. And they seem to have, they're living well, and they call that their home. They got a good home, they got their own power plant and that. Well, I think they've got it from here now, but they used to have their own lighting plant and that. It's a lovely place. Been there?
Long time ago. Yes, there's not much now.
Not much left now.
In a way,
Yes.
Seem to have that under control.
No, because this.
And they were doing a survey on the eyes, glaucoma.
Yes, that's it. One of my sons lost, and my eldest son lost an eye. I don't know what they call the disease of the eye. It came all the way from Igata down the coast. Trachoma, I think, and he lost one of his eyes through that. Living up north, no medical, and that we were advised to clean his eyes 4 or 5 or more times a day and put Agirol, I think they call it. It's sort of like it broke my heart when he lost one of his eyes.
What age was he then?
He was only 12 when he lost it. But he's happy. But you could imagine the feeling his mother and I had after all what we'd done.
Well, thank you very much, Alf, for all
That's
that
all right.
information of your life up here.
I hope Duggan gave you some.
He did. End of interview.